Welcome to Carlton's Math Corner. Today we are going to be learning about math properties. And to begin, make sure you have your math journal out as well as your vocabulary packet. Okay, so let's start off. Our first property that we're going to be learning about is the distributive property. And we are going to learn how we can use it to write and evaluate expressions. So let's first talk about what is the distributive property. Well, distributive property basically just means that you are introducing a number to a group of numbers. And so it's kind of like when you are forming new friendships. You come in, you may introduce yourself to a group of people, and you become friends with each one of those individuals. And so let's talk about some ways to remember distributive property. Well, we need to learn first that distributive property is always linked to introduce, okay? And so whenever you think of the word introduce, I want you to think of distributive property. And so this symbol right here is actually a symbol for D in American Sign Language. And so you will see me sometimes in class where I put a D up, which means distributive property. And then I will wave high for introduce. So D for distributive and then introduce, because I want you to think of that key word every time I say the distributive property, okay? Then below, well, distributive property is, as I said before, is like you are introducing yourself to a group of friends. Well, just like Scooby-Doo here is being introduced to all of these friends which have already formed a friendship. Okay, so they're within a group. So if you notice there's parentheses, and in this case they have addition in the middle of them to show that they are connected somehow. And so Scooby-Doo is going to introduce himself to SpongeBob, and they're going to become friends. And then he's going to introduce himself to Lucy, and then to Robin, and lastly to Frozone. And what happens is he forms all these new friendships. And so Scooby-Doo is friends with each and every one of them. Okay? Same thing with distributive property. We are introducing a number to a group of numbers. And sometimes there may be 4 numbers within inside, just like there are 4 friends here. But other times there may only be like two numbers. Okay? Now we need to talk about, though, in mathematics, what happens when numbers are forming relationships. And that's what I want to talk about. So here's some examples. So here's the number 9, and it's going to be introduced to the 7, and it's going to be introduced to the 5. And what happens is the 9 will show multiplication between the two of them to show that they are now connected and they are friends. Okay? And then the 9 will also do the same thing with the 5. Okay? And what happens in the middle is this symbol, whatever it is, it could be addition or subtraction, remains the same. Just like when Scooby-Doo introduced himself to all of these characters, the addition remained the same, and it stayed the same. Okay? And so we're going to keep the same here. Now, we can't leave the number the way it is. We can't leave this expression the way it is, because we can actually do something with this 9 and 7. Remember what happens when you have a number next to another number and there's parentheses between them. Yeah, it means multiplication. So we're going to actually multiply them out. So 9 times 7 is 63, and 9 times 5 is 45. So we're going to do 63 minus 45, which equals 18. Okay, so let's do the next one. we have 5 introducing itself to the 3 and the 4. So we have 5 times 3. We're going to keep the addition, and 5 times 4. So we're going to multiply those out, and 5 times 3 is 15, and 5 times 4 is 20. But in this case, we have addition, so we're going to add them, and we get 35. Then the 7 is introduced to the 2, plus, because there's addition, and then we have 7 times 5, because it was introduced to the 5. So 7 times 2 is 14, and 7 times 5 is 35. And when we add them together, we get an answer of 49. The wonderful thing about distributive property is it helps us, especially with really large numbers, it helps us to break it down and do smaller multiplication problems. Because sometimes within these parentheses, we have really large numbers. Like for instance, when we did order of operations, we found that sometimes inside parentheses, we have powers, and powers give us really large numbers. Well, if we had a power in here, we could do the power first, and then we can introduce this number to whatever number we would get at that time. And so distributive property is just one way for us to organize the numbers and to find a different way to find an answer and to simplify them to the small, or into one answer, one number. And so here's the next one. This one's a tricky one because it's a little different. We have a 2 that's being introduced to a variable. Like it's not, we don't even know what number it is. We have no clue. And then it's introduced to the 6. Well, that is a number, so we could figure that one out. But if I say that the 2 is being introduced to the n, and then when we keep addition, and the 2 is introduced to the 6. Well, if we don't know what n is, can we actually multiply? Can we do 2 times n? Like, would that work if we don't know what n is? No, we can't. We actually leave it the way it is. But can we do 2 times 6? Yes. So this is how it's going to be written. 2n, because remember you can put them next to each other and it still means multiplication. So 2n plus 2 times 6 is 12. This is really the only way we can write our answer, because we don't know what n is, so we can't get a number, a single number as an answer. Okay. At this time, what I would like for you to do are the following ticket problems. Use the distributor property, introduce those numbers to those groups to determine what answer you have. Thank you so much for joining me at Carlton's Math Corner. I look forward to meeting with you next time.